American accent training. Welcome to our Saturday live question and answer class. At the start of class today, I'm going to talk about fluent speaking, give you some tips and help for a particular phrase to talk about how we link and reduce. You can ask questions about fluent speech, articulation, how to pronounce certain words, whatever you like. Put your questions in the chat at any time, and I'll turn to those in just a moment. Welcome back, everyone. It's nice to see so many of you here this morning. So the phrase I'm going to look at today, our target phrase, is I don't think he's into that. So you can see how already when I'm saying that, it's not really matching word for word what I've written here. First off, we tend not to say I do not. I do not think. The only time I would use do not is if I'm really highlighting the not part. I do not think. So that's used for extra emphasis, for disagreement. It's a very strong use. Most of the time, instead of do not, we'll be saying don't. And this word don't, often people don't feel comfortable pronouncing it. So I do have a video coming up soon that will be talking about don't, won't, and can't, and how you can easily pronounce these. Knowing that don't doesn't really sound like do not. We don't have any vowel here, and rather than an oo for do, it becomes an o, like in the word dough. So I'm going to write that here with an OH, same as we have in donut or docent. The O vowel is a diphthong, and then we're going to the N. The N is going to be short, and you won't really hear that T. If I say it by itself, I don't, then I can use the T. But typically, we use what's called a stopped or unreleased T here. I don't, especially because our next word is think, that starts with a consonant. So if I were saying I don't eat, I might use the T, or I might use I don't eat. I might drop that T. Because my next word is think, I don't think, I'm going to use that unreleased T sound. No changes to the word think, I don't think. But for he is, I will be, again, contracting those. The only time, again, I would use is if I'm saying it by itself. For example, he is, or he is into that, if I'm emphasizing or stressing on the is. Otherwise, we always contract those to he's. I don't think he's into that. So when I say he's, it's going to have a couple of different possible pronunciations. I can say I don't think he's with the H sound and the true E. Typically, though, here we're going to drop that H. I don't think he's into that. So it's going to sound more like I don't think he's into that. I use a Z here because the words is and the contracted form of is have the Z sound for the letter S. I don't think he's. Then when we go from he's into that, I don't think he's into that, we'll link the Z to the next I. And in the word into, even though we have in and to, we typically will change and reduce this word as well. So into becomes more of into that, or into that. So we tend to reduce this oo sound and change it to a schwa. And for the nt, inda or into, we can use either a d or a t sound here. I'll write it as inda. I don't think he's into that. So you can also use a t sound there, but basically you don't want that clear oo vowel anymore. That if I just say into by itself, I can use the oo. Otherwise, the full phrase is going to sound like, I don't think he's into that. I don't think he's into that. So you can see that's quite different from the written words here. Not only the contractions, but how we pronounce them in connected speech. Individual words are different when they're placed into different contexts, so it's very helpful to practice this. You can use parts of it if it's too many things to manage at once in this full phrase. just practice with I don't think, I don't know, I don't say, using that part of it. Practicing with he's. If you're starting with it, you're going to keep the H. He's into that. He's into sports. He's into TV. He's into working out. You're going to practice that way. Or I don't think he's like that. I don't think he's okay. I don't think he's going. You can put your own words in here to practice different elements of it at once if it's a lot of things to keep track of. So it's not so much that you have to practice on any one sentence, but this is a good sentence to give you some examples of ways that we link and reduce. You can get more help for specific linking and reductions on our playlist for fluent speaking and linking and reductions. I talk about sentences, individual words, how we change our speech to be more fluent. And you can also get help for that in my Real Talk course on speechmodification.com. There again, we look at all of the common reductions we do in English, and I teach you how to use TV and movies to listen for this kind of fluent speaking and to imitate and use those Real Talk techniques in your own fluent speech. So thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's nice to see so many of you here this morning. I'll turn to your questions now. Feel free to ask about fluent speaking or pronunciation of words. Whatever will help you be more confident when speaking English. So we have a question about subtitles. So you're noticing that people will subtitle something as Colin for the word calling. If they've written it this way in the subtitles, then it's probably being pronounced with an N, Colin. Just Colin to say whatever. So that's a casual pronunciation that we use and that some dialects of English will use. If you want to be accurate when speaking English, you should use the NG sound, calling. I'm just calling you, I'm calling about. This is okay for talking with a friend. Hey, I'm calling about, etc. But it is more of like of a Southern accent or a casual speech. And in most cases, most of the time when there's ing words, we should use the NG sound. This is more reserved for a few phrases like how you doing, how's it going, etc. So if you see that in the subtitles, you can listen to the actor and you probably will hear. I would say if they wrote it that way, it's because the actor or the speaker that the subtitles are for used an N sound rather than an NG sound. You can get more help for that in my videos about N and NG. And also in our Sounds of English course, I walk you through the spelling and the sounds and all of the different pronunciations for the letters. You can check that out on the website as well. Thank you. That was a good question. Okay, we have a question about how to pronounce prerogative. Is it spelled with a R before it? Prerogative. Yeah, this is not an easy one. So I think a lot of people, because purr is really hard to say, I think a lot of people just will say purr there. Purr, ah, guh. And then we would tend to flap this. So rather than tiv, we might use a light D sound. Stress on the ah syllable. Prerogative, prerogative. I mean, the difference between prr and purr is really not audible, so it's easier to do purr, prerogative. Just making sure that you have two syllables there. You don't want to go right to pra, not pra, but purra, purra, or purra. Yeah, I can barely even say prr, if that's actually how it's spelled. Okay, thank you for that request, that question. I might have a video for that. I'll check and see, or you can check on the channel by using the search tool on the channel. On our homepage, if you scroll across the top menu, it'll say videos, playlists, etc. And there's a search box. You can type in your word, and if I have a video for that word, it'll pop up, or related videos will pop up. Great. Welcome. Nice to see you here from Guatemala. We have a question about the L sound in value. Whether it's a dark or a light L. So often when the L is in the middle, you can use a light L. Like if I'm saying feeling, because I can break here, feeling, and the L connects the two syllables. in value. I don't think it connects them quite as much because we have a consonant sound here, because the letter U here says a y and an oo. So we have first syllable stress val, and then second syllable U. So I would say that's probably more of a dark L there. Value, val, al. Although the a and ul sound is not a really strong dark L, I don't really have to do much of a schwa sound before it. Val, because the a is in the front. So I'm just gonna lift val, and touch my tongue behind my teeth, value. Yeah, I think of the dark L happening more when we're saying a word like feel, eel, where I really have to make an extra, if I'm saying feel, I have to make a vowel to vowel linking there because I have the sound before the L, feel. Whereas in val, I don't really have to do vowel. There's no difference there. So maybe that is a light L at the end of a syllable. I feel like the light and dark L, the most important thing is the vowels before it. And for all L's, you can lift the tongue behind the teeth. I don't really recommend not closing the L because oftentimes it'll just sound like a distorted vowel sound instead of an L if it's not a natural placement for you. So using the light L, but just keeping the back of the tongue down, value, making sure you don't lift the whole tongue for that L sound. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Welcome. We have one of our channel members here today. It's nice to see you. He has questions about the word television. So we'll take yours one at a time. So television, 4 syllables, first syllable stress. We have the vowel in tel. The second E is going to be a schwa because it's unstressed. And then we have the I sound in vision. And then this S is going to be a zh sound. I guess I switched here. Went from unconventional spelling to the IPA. So the IPA would be vision. How I would write that in spelling would be vision. So this zh is to represent the letter S. That's like an SH sound, but my voice is on zh rather than sh, television. And then you also asked about politician. So for politician, our stress is here on the t syllable. Letter O, though, has some secondary stress and the ah sound. Like in popular or pop, the letter O says ah. That's the most typical for a stressed O. So we have pa, li. You might also use a schwa there, pa li or pa la. Politi. We have stress on the t syllable, stressed I sound. Those letters CI say the SH sound here. And then almost no vowel, a schwa or no vowel before the end. So it sounds like pa, la, ti, shun, politician. So I saw the politician on television. And then lastly, you were asking about justification. Justification. This one follows the pattern of when we have Asian or Ishan words, we're always stressing on the syllable before the shun. Same as politician. We have the I syllable. Here the A is stressed in a clear vowel. So we have justification. So my justification for the vacation was the politician on television. Yeah, I hope that helped you with those words. Just take it slow, one syllable at a time. You might also want to start with a stress syllable like cation, justification, titian, politician, or just take each syllable slowly, then speed up like justification, justification, justification. Once you can say the words by themselves, don't forget to try using them in some short phrases, because oftentimes we can master a word, then we go to use it and it still comes out the old way, or we still stumble. The more I've used that word in phrases in practice, the more likely I'll be able to pronounce it correctly when I need to use it in conversation. Okay, great. Nice questions today. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. We have a question that's hard for even native speakers a word that's hard for even native speakers to pronounce. Sure, lots of them. Prerogative, we were just talking about. Rural, that's really hard to say. Murder, harder, smarter, juror. Anytime there's like multiple R's repeating, it can be difficult. Longer words that are less familiar, but usually it's a kind of combination of sounds that don't go very easily or well together that just makes it hard for a native speaker even to pronounce. I'm often saying that if I'm talking about a word in one of my Word of the Day videos or here in live class. There's certainly plenty of words that I find difficult that I have to slow down a little bit and be intentional about pronouncing. And then there's also lots of words that Americans just learned incorrectly and mispronounce, like nuclear. People will mispronounce that nuclear instead of nuclear. So there's a lot of words that have mispronunciations that are common from native speakers because they don't know them or because they're difficult to pronounce. So yeah, it's you're not alone in struggling to pronounce English. Great question. Okay, we have a question about flap T if it's pronounced R or D. So you're saying you hear it as R, and that's correct. So the flap sound in English, letters T and D, we flap those sounds in the middle of words. So if I'm saying, for example, bedding or bedding, in both of those, I'm using a flap here. In other languages, R is pronounced as a flap. So in Spanish, pero, that R is going to be a flap sound. A flap is just the tongue touching up behind the teeth without building up pressure. So if I say the D sound, day, I'm completely stopping the air and bursting it out. Or the T sound, to, you're stopping the air and then it bursts out. But a flap, bedding, the tongue is touching in the space that it does for the T and the D, and my voice is on like a D, but I'm not stopping there. I'm not saying bedding, I'm saying bedding. It's one roll of a rolled R. So if it helps you to think of it as an R, that's fine. A flap can be an R in other languages. Flap is just the description for what the tongue is doing. And the letters represent the spelling of words and patterns for using flap. The challenge for that is when you have a word like better, where you have to do a flap and then an American R. Sometimes people, if they're trying to think of R, then another R, it's hard for them. So just keep that in mind that if you hear an R, it's because you probably have a flap for an R in your language, and you can use that if it's helpful for you in words like this. If it gives you trouble here, getting used to T being the flap, the letter T being the flap sound can be helpful. I do have a video about that. It's talking specifically about flap in Spanish and English, but that might be helpful for you if you would like to go a little more in depth. Or you can learn a lot more about flap T in our Sounds of English course on speechmodification.com. Walks you through all of the sounds, spelling and letters, accent error patterns to watch out for, to help you really get that American sound system, to build a strong foundation to pronounce any word you like confidently and easily in American English. So I hope you'll check that out. That's our Sounds of English course on our website, speechmodification.com. Okay, we have a question about preferences. So preferences. This is an example of, I did just now say preferences. We have the word prefer, which is stressed on fur, but because in preferences, this syllable is unstressed, we end up sometimes reducing it to just preferences. My preferences. So tell me about your preferences. rather than preferences. That's true in like different. We don't do different, we just do different. So sometimes the gets dropped and just becomes the R sound rather than the vowel. Okay, and then you also were asking about woman and women. So I do have a video for this, and one thing to be aware of is try not to think about man and men. There's no man in woman and there's no men in women. So man and men, totally different story. Also something to work on. In woman, notice how it's just like a word like human or person. I'm not saying human, I'm saying human. I have a reduced vowel there. The A basically makes no vowel. The dictionary is going to show it as woman with a schwa, but that schwa is very short and reduced. You can basically go right from the to the n. And then this letter O is going to be the vowel, like in should or push or good. So it might help you to think of it as like a U, w, or an OU like we have in would, and then men, woman. So one woman, many women. The vowel O, letter O, changes here in women to the I sound. So here we have an I and another I, women. Again, this is going to be fairly reduced, women, but it's still going to be an I sound rather than a sound. Woman, women. So this one, just think about like the word win is going to help you. Win, women. Definitely challenging because the spelling is a little bit misleading on those words. Visualizing this. I also like pairing some words, like thinking about thin women, or it's for women, the I vowel, and then woman. You can think about like good woman or should the woman, would the woman. Using those words that have the same vowel can be helpful. Thank you. Yeah, definitely a lot of people struggle with that, or I would say people don't realize that they're mispronouncing those words, so it's good that you're recognizing that those are words to pay attention to how to pronounce. Okay, great. We have a lot of great questions today. I'll be able to take a few more and then we'll need to wrap up. But if I don't get to your question, I highly recommend leaving it in the comments after class or writing in the comments right now, because I do go back to the comments later and answer those for you and give you resources and help for your questions. And if you're watching this later on, not live, you can leave your question in a comment as well. Okay. So we have a question about listen, with the words listen, leader, and married. So for listen, we have the I sound and first syllable stress. The T is silent, listen. So think about it like listen. A little short reduced I sound there, or schwa, listen. Again, we're kind of almost using no vowel there. So the T and the E are almost silent, listen. And then for leader, we have the EA, says the E sound like in me or green. So I'll rewrite that with an E here, first syllable stress. And then the D is flapped, leader, der. And then we just again have our sound. Listen to leaders, married. We have the letters AR saying the air diphthong, first syllable stress, and then IE says E here, married. So they were married in June. Yeah, good words. Thank you so much. Nice to see everyone here. I'm going to apologize in advance. I might not get to everyone's question today. A lot of great questions here in the chat, so thank you so much. And let's see what else we have. We have a question about the words with ward, like ward of the state or wardrobe, whether they're pronounced with the OR sound war, war. So yes, W-A-R typically says the or sound. If you write it with O-R, though, you're going to see the word word, which is pronounced with the E-R sound. So think about ward. I like to think of the word ward as the word war plus D. So I do have a video that came out fairly recently talking about letters A-R after W saying the O-R sound and letters O-R after W saying the E-R sound. So you can think about this like wardrobe. Or like warden, W-A-R-D-E-N. Think about it with the O-R spelling because it has the O-R sounds. Yeah, it's one of the strange spelling conventions we have in English that's a little bit confusing. Same thing for O-R-N as well, like warn, warning, etc. Warm with A-R-M. Yeah, okay. We have a question about seat and sit and these and this. I do have some videos about these as well. So what we're looking at here is the E, green T vowel, versus the I, pink pig vowel. This is higher and more tense, and this is a little bit lower and more lax. So the E, you can, for example, pair it with another word like a green seat, or he needs a seat, versus it sits, didn't sit, using word pairs to match those. And then the difference again for these, this one has the E sound as well, and SE says Z, the Z sound, and this has this sound. So I liked using things like need 3 of these. So you have that E, need 3 of these, reinforce that. This is it, it's this. Reinforcing that I sound as well. I have a number of videos talking about these words specifically and also the E versus I sounds here on the channel and also in our Sounds of English course on speechmodification.com. Great request. Thank you. A lot of people struggle with those vowels. We have a question about the position of the tongue when using stressed schwa. So it's just my tongue is sitting in the bottom of my mouth, and my mouth is not very open. So if I'm saying some or such, I just want to have a central jaw, some, such. Tongue sits down in the bottom, fairly relaxed, not pushed down, because we have, for example, the ah, my jaw is more open with my tongue down, the some, like in nut, that's the schwa. And not, that's the ah. Ah, I'm not, a nut, nut. So same tongue relative to the jaw, but the jaw is more closed for the schwa than for the ah. Great, okay. Okay, so we have a question about the word caveat. So caveat, we have the ah vowel, first syllable stress, letter E says E, caveat, and then letter A says ah again. I do think some people say caveat, so that's also a possibility, like cat, caveat or caveat. I'd have to double check to make sure that both of those are in the dictionary, but I think they are. Good word, thank you. So question about should lips touch when I say something? So you're saying you notice that you might not close all the way for the M in something. Something, something. Yeah, you can get away with something, more of an N sound, but if you can, something, you should try to close the lips, because if I say something, you can hear it just sounds a little bit imprecise. Because there is no word something, it sounds close enough. Like if you can't see someone's lips, you may or may not hear that difference. if it really messes up your TH, you don't have to close for the M, but it will be slightly wrong if you say something instead of something. You can hear they sound very similar though. M and N have a very and N have a very similar sound. We do rely on visuals for that, but there is a bit of an auditory difference as well. Great. Okay. So many great questions today. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have time to cover all of them. I'll try to briefly get to at least one of your questions, but as I said before, please copy and paste your question into the comments so I can return here later and get back to you with more detailed answers. You can also attend our class next weekend or leave a comment on this or any video with your question, and I can add it to my list to cover in a future class. Okay, we have a question about English as a second language coaching. So I tend to, yes, I work with lots of clients with English as a second language, and part of what we do is accent training, and sometimes there's also help for the English language as it relates to pronunciation, or if you're trying to just build some language, some grammar skills or vocabulary, those are all things that we can work on. My main focus is on accent training and fluency in speaking English, but those things can be interrelated. So you can check out my services on my website, speechmodification.com, to learn more. Okay. We have a phrase. So the phrase of the pronunciation of see to it that. So if someone says, I will see to it that that happens, see to it, we tend to link between these two. So it sounds like see, this too, see to it. I think we tend to use a true oo here because we have another vowel following. So as we link to the it, we're going to have a little bit of vowel to vowel linking with a w sound. See to it that. This T is not going to get pronounced. It'll just be held like we were talking about at the beginning of class. And then we have our that sound. So I will see to it that this is completed on time. Yeah, that's definitely a little bit tricky because of the vowel to vowel linking and the unreleased T there. Very good. Okay. We have a question about ubiquitous. So ubiquitous. We have second syllable stress here. This is an unusual word in that the letter U at the start says a y and a u sound. So you can think about you. And then we have a k sound for a qu sound for the K. So ubiquitous. We don't really need two K sounds, so I'll leave that C off. But we link between the B and the qu, so you can think about biqui. Ubiquitous. So a schwa here, but you might also say it as a bit of an I sound. As long as you have a reduced vowel there, it doesn't matter too much which vowel. Ubiquitous. So right now, iPhones or cellular phones are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. That means ubiquitous means you see a lot of it. It's everywhere. Okay, very good. We have a question about, let's see, trying to make sure that I've covered one of your questions for everyone, because you have a lot of repeats here. We have a question about the word ruin. So here's a great example of vowel to vowel linking, because the letter U says the rounded oo, first syllable stress, and then the letter I says the unrounded I sound. So in between, we need a w to connect them. Ruin. If I do ruin, you can hear how it naturally breaks. I don't need to insert extra w there, not ruin, but just naturally gliding from the oo to the I, you should hear a w connecting them. Ruin. So please don't ruin my day. Very good. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to need to wrap it up without getting to everyone's question today. As I mentioned before, though, you can copy your question into the comments, and I'll get back to you with resources and answers here on the channel. And I hope to see you again on Tuesday for our new video that's releasing, and again for our live class next Saturday. Thanks so much for watching and being a part of class today. It's wonderful to see so many of you here with such great questions, and keep coming back to the channel for answers. You can also get lots of help and free resources, as well as our online courses on my website, speechmodification.com. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate your coming, liking, sharing, commenting. All of those things really help the channel to grow, and I appreciate your support. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound like a native speaker, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye, everyone. Hope to see you again soon.